The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent. Addie Rich is out on vacation, but she'll be back next week. All right. Well, we're ending one year and starting another, right? It's that time of year. And whenever you're listening to this, either the year is wrapping up or the new one has already started. So happy New Year. I am a polio survivor, walked on crutches for 50 years or so, crutches and braces, and then transitioned to the wheelchair over the last 20 years or so. So no going back. And we wanted to do a wrap-up show of everything that we did in 2024. So welcome to our year-end wrap-up episode of Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories. What an incredible year it's been, too. First, we want to express our heartfelt appreciation to our sponsor, Aguiar Professional Training. Your support allows us to keep sharing these impactful stories, so thank you so much. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in week after week. Your engagement inspires us to keep going. And most importantly, to our guests, thank you for your courage, wisdom, and for sharing your personal journeys. This year, we've been privileged to learn from individuals overcoming challenges and educating us about the services and programs available to the disabled community and creating more awareness. As we reflect on 2024, we'll highlight some unforgettable moments from our episodes, each offering a unique perspective and a powerful lesson. Also, something that went on in 2024 is we started with our co-host, Eric Aguilar, and Eric got so busy, he takes classes, he gets training, and there's been some other developments since we haven't heard from him on our show, but he has got some accolades. He sent me a whole list of things that he has achieved and things that are coming soon for him in the way of leadership roles and that kind of thing. So a heartfelt congratulations to Eric. What happened is I got reconnected with an old friend from years and years and years ago. She came on the show. We got reconnected, told her story, and then I asked her to be a co-host just in interim, while Eric was out doing some stuff. And it just kind of morphed into when Eric got really busy, couldn't make it. I asked her if she would be our co-host, so now she's our new co-host. Another big development in 2024, and she'll be going forward with us in 2025. We're so happy to hear that. All right, we're going to take a quick break, hear from our sponsor, Aguiar Professional Training, and we'll be back with one of the first highlights of the year. We're going to be talking to Eddie Ramirez.
At Aguiar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Aguiar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Aguiar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
Walk and Roll Live. Disability Stories. Wrapping up 2024.
You are listening to the wrap-up show for 2024 here at Walk and Roll Live. And this is the first of about 10 different segments we're going to highlight. We had so much more. These are by no means like the best or the top listened to or anything like that. We just wanted to kind of give a variety of the things that we do here on Walk and Roll Live, and more of this to come and some new things in 2025. So first, we're going to check in with Eddie Ramirez, the journey of resilience. Eddie shared his story of transitioning from an active teenager to a paraplegic after a tragic accident, where I got to say the activity continued, and that active lifestyle, his zest for life and refusal to let his injury define him was one of the highlights of 2024. Stories we've had here on Walk and Roll Live. It's interesting that and I'm sure it has to do with the nature of injuries and all those things, but man, there's been some people that seem like they're out of the hospital within a week or two. So I think this is one of the first stories where somebody's been in, quite a long time. So it really kind of speaks to the severity.
Yeah, and I thought, man, I was like, man, when am I going to get to go home?
Yeah. So
I
you
was
were
ready to go
mentally
home.
ready to go before physically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good point that you made. I was mentally ready.
Yeah.
Because when you go home, then reality sets in. And you're like,
so at what point did they start rehab?
They started right away, because I like I mentioned, I was in ICU about a week and a half, As soon as a room opens up in rehab, they send you right away. So they start moving you, as soon as we can, and, you start, doing mobility, they start doing weightlifting, trying to get you stronger, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So you were at East Campus at Loma Linda for rehab?
Actually, East Campus wasn't there yet.
Oh, okay.
When I got injured, I was at the main hospital.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that was at East Campus was the outpatient therapy. And, that's where I went for, I want to say for about 2 years I was there. Yeah.
And do you feel like it really helped?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know, I go back and I, talk to my mom about like how pushy these physical therapists were when I was an inpatient, and like, no, you got to do it on your own. You got to figure it out, and I'm like, I'm in a wheelchair, I need help,
Yeah.
at that time, right. But, even going to outpatient rehab, that really helped me to get stronger. It was when I was an outpatient when I started driving, and,
Wow.
I would take myself to my therapy appointments, and they even worked with me like, how are you going to get into your vehicle? What's easier? How do you load the chair in? My parents bought me or helped me get my first vehicle after I got injured. It was a F-150, it was a truck. So
Yeah, you needed to be strong to get up in there, huh?
Yeah. So, I learned, a certain way how to get in from, meeting other guys, that had spinal cord injuries. And then, once I was done with outpatient rehab, I learned how to get in a different way, a lot easier, but using my strengths, So,
Yeah. Well, and that's the reason I ask is, not to, to delve into the quality of the care at Loma Linda by any means, because they're top rate. But just in the stories that we've heard on Walk and Roll Live, that there are stories that we've heard where they're out of the hospital within a week or two, and it's like, good luck. They didn't get peer support, they didn't get anything. So it's interesting to listen from story to story how different that can be. And how that can kind of set you up for life. I mean, I think in addition to the physical rehabilitation and the training you got, I think that sets the tone and helps you kind of, as you were talking about them really pushing you to help you know what your limits are. Right?
Yeah.
And what
absolutely.
you're capable of.
Yeah.
Sure, that was invaluable.
Yeah, at the moment you're like, man, these people are like calling me, but
Yeah, they're torturing
like
me.
you're saying, I was very fortunate to have a team like that, that, was very supportive, that were willing to push me, to my limits, because, that's what's ultimately going to make you independent, once you start, living your life after the injury, right? Post injury. So.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I know you through your experience, through Loma Linda, through Possibilities, that's where I met you when you were playing basketball for the Rolling Bears, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But all of those things kind of set you up to help you realize that there is a life after this disease or injury. I'm sorry. And where I think a lot of people, and rightfully so, something like this happens, and you were at that age where I'm sure you were beginning to think about, what is my life going to be? You're into your teen years, and life on your own is right around the corner. Now all of a sudden that's interrupted. So what are your thoughts about that? What was your mindset?
Absolutely. I think in inpatient rehab in the hospital, when I found out, like, hey, it's most likely you won't be able to walk again. You start thinking, you have a lot of time in the hospital. I'm like, man, what's my
Yeah.
life going to look like? Am I going to be able to have am I going to be able to get someone, married to someone who's going to
Yeah.
love me for me?
Yep.
Or what's that relationship going to look like? Am I going to be able to live on my own independently? Was a big one too.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's what they're there to help you, to get you ready for, to live an independent life, and yeah, kind of, put you on the right path.
Next up, we're going to check in with Luis Otomoro, Advocacy and Triumph. Luis taught us about perseverance, walking us through his recovery from an incredible oil rig accident. Man, that was inspiring. Go back and listen to the whole episode if you want to check that out. And his work as an ambassador for the Triumph Foundation.
I agree, because there's so many difficulties with people trying to park, go someplace, and find a reasonable accommodation. And people too easy to argue with each other and judge each other. Someone like Eric and I trying to get out of the car, and they're saying, well, you're too young to be disabled. You should be a senior citizen. That's not true. Disability comes in all ages and flavors, and it can be anybody.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to add, Eric?
Yeah.
I got a good saying for those with disability that try to knock other people with disabilities. Before you decide to throw a rock at somebody, maybe they should throw a bunch of rocks at themselves first.
Yeah. Just be a little more reflective, right?
Exactly. And like I tell people as an ambassador is, look, it's not your job to police these things.
Yeah.
It's the job of the police. Let the police officer make that determination, because that's their job. They're trained to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So let them do that. If you see something that is suspect that you're unsure of, call the local police department. Have their number in your speed dial. Call and report it. Absolutely report it.
Yeah.
But don't go and do something about it. You're not the police. You're not a vigilante. You can get your head busted.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are people that will, even though you're in a wheelchair, they will swing on you because they think that you're getting into their business. Stay away from that. Avoid it.
Yeah.
Let people be, but report, and let the officer make the determination.
Yeah, a good point. And I think on top of that, you just don't know. You just don't know what that person is going through. You mentioned a pacemaker, and that's just one of probably hundreds of things that you're still able to walk, but you still need, to have that placard in that spot.
Exactly. And like I try and teach people, call it accessible parking. I'm real big into saying the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell people, don't use handicap for one, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Not a good word to use. It's accessible parking, not disabled parking, not handicap parking, not whatever. Just call it accessible parking. You don't have to say wheelchair accessible, just accessible.
Yeah.
And that's good enough.
Absolutely.
Keep it simple, keep it easy. Because it might be your grandma, who has a hip problem,
mm-hmm.
Or grandpa's got a pacemaker, or somebody else has a wheelchair, or, a veteran who's an amputee.
Yeah.
You never know.
Or has chronic
and it's
pain.
Not your place to ask.
Even chronic pain from a military injury. You just don't know. So let's circle back. Post injury, what was your life like after that? Getting back into your life.
I did rehab. Few months after my injury, I was sent to Rancho Los Amigos in Downey, California.
So back to California. Okay.
Yeah. But actually, shortly after my injury, when I told you I went into a coma and for about a week and a half. And when I came out of the coma, my family was there in North Dakota. And they asked the doctors, okay, what are you going to do with them? You know, what's the next step in this? And they said, well, we're going to send them to rehab in another state because we don't have rehab in this state. So we'll send them to Minneapolis, Chicago, like Shirley Ryan, you know, Ability Lab, Craig Hospital in Denver, Colorado, which was their main contract. You know, a lot of smaller states will contract with a larger state that has rehabilitation services.
Okay.
So that was the plan. And my family was like, we don't have any family in any of those three areas. You know, he'd be there totally by himself. And the one doctor said, well, where are you from? And they said, well, we're from Los Angeles. And the doctor's eyes lit up and got all big. And he was like, oh my God, that's where Rancho Los Amigos is. You know, there's also another place called Casa Colina.
Yeah.
How far do you live from those places? And my mom says, well, we live about 35 miles from Rancho, and we live about, 10, 12 miles from Casa Colina. And they said, we're sending you home.
This was kind of a break from what we normally do. We either have a guest or maybe an organization that provides programs and services for our community. But this time we explored Rett syndrome through the eyes of Maggie's family. AJ Tesler and Dr. Carrie Fu educated us on the challenges and joys of raising awareness and supporting families affected by this condition.
It is progressive, but not degenerative. So it will change over time. There will be a change in symptoms. There is a plateau part of the disorder, and then they get to a certain age, and because of whatever symptoms they might have experienced, it may impact future issues down the line. But because it is not degenerative, it is important to maintain a rehabilitation mindset throughout it so that the kids can remain strong and as capable and grow as capable as they can be.
Yeah,
that's absolutely correct, Mr. Tesler. It's definitely, there was a time where it was thought to be degenerative, but we know now very much so that it's definitely not a degenerative disorder. And the skill loss, the skill regression, that it definitely does stabilize. And over time, as you said, symptoms can evolve, and it is progressive, and symptoms can change, but life expectancy is not significantly altered. And as you said, the mindset really should be about rehabilitation and habilitation to help maintain the skills that they still have and to prevent any further regression, and to help them sometimes gain back some skills that kids previously lost. And so that it'd be something attainable throughout the lifespan. But I definitely want to go back to something else that you had said about the unknowns, and I think that is one of the biggest things that I've seen with other families that I've had the privilege of meeting is that this the variability in phenotype and symptoms that kids with Rett syndrome can have, and that unknown I think really adds to it, and I think you'll probably speak to it better as as somebody who's lived through it, but adds to that sense of powerlessness because it is a rare disorder, and you're left with, again, a lot of not knowing and not being able to predict the future. And so a lot of what maybe you had thought you'd be able to do with your child, that a lot of that changes, which though I think is why a series like this that you're putting out and in the past you've put out is so amazing to have. And I think I'm so grateful that this is out there because it really helps empower families to see what is possible and to help them, once they, even after getting that diagnosis, I think it helps them realize that they don't have to allow it to define them, right? That they, you know, if they had thought there were things that they wanted to do with a child before Rett syndrome, they should still, you know, have every, you know, think they shouldn't give those things up, and they should, you know, feel free to still pursue those things even after the diagnosis, because, you know, we want to make sure that everybody feels, you know, free to, you know, live a limitless life and not let the disorder, you know, define their family, and to let their child still experience these things.
Yeah, I've said this before, and one of the first good advice that I got when Maggie was diagnosed was that labels are for cans, not for kids, and that the key thing is that your kid can have bad experiences or good experiences, whether they're typical or atypical, and it's up to your job as a parent. It's up to you as a parent to make sure that you are providing them with a rich and fully enriched life, no matter what their disability. And so that's largely why we're so excited about this series, and really, as Dr. Fu mentioned, showcasing what really is possible beyond the diagnosis. And in spite of, regardless of what your particular disability is, that you can still go out and accomplish amazing things. Yeah. And one clarification I wanted to make also on something that Dr. Fu said that I think might be confusing for typical audiences is that it is a genetic mutation, but that it is not actually a hereditary disease. It is a random genetic mutation. So this can happen to anybody, and it did. All of the families who have a kid with Rett syndrome, that's exactly what happened. Is they had no idea that this was a thing that could happen until the day that it did happen, and then they had to navigate their way through a very tricky, rare world where there's not a lot of answers, although we are a growing scientific community and learning more every day, that all of us were just like any other typical first-time parents before we got thrust into this special needs world, as many people in the special needs world have experienced.
I met this guy at a WCMX event, which is wheelchairs and in skateboards with people with disabilities at a skateboard park. And he was there and found out that he was a manufacturer of wheelchairs. So I got to know him. I introduced myself, invited him to come on the show, and he said, yep. So we had him on. His name is Tom Finch. Adaptive fabrication is what he does. Tom turned his spinal injury into a mission to create custom adaptive equipment, proving that innovation and determination can empower independence. So here's a clip with Tom.
Yeah, I can look back through my life, and, I started welding in 1983. And, I was fortunate that I got to do a lot of different things. And, my dad always taught me, try to learn something new every day. And so that's how I've tried to live my life. And now that, once I got into the wheelchair stuff, I can see where lots of the things I've learned through all these other different jobs and projects that we've done over the years, I've been able to use some aspect of all that in the wheelchairs. For example, the biggest example is, working in the hydraulic industry, I bent a lot of tubing, did a lot of tube installations for big manufacturers, for Boeing, stuff like that. And all that relates right into what I do with the wheelchairs, and then the welding, of course. And what was really unique, we just finished and delivered 2 weeks ago. And it's kind of the same thing. No one would talk to them. Make-A-Wish Foundation came to me, and they needed a hiking stroller for a young couple because they live up in the Tahoe area. And nobody would even talk to, no one would even talk to them about, oh, that's not what we do. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. And so they called us. I said, I haven't built one, but we'll sure figure it out. And, I'm not the greatest electrician, but we figured it out. It has a third wheel in the back. It's a wheel motor, and we utilize scooter handlebars, and it has a thumb control. And, we delivered it to this, just an adorable young little kid, about 6 years old. His name's Dodge. I believe he has cerebral palsy. And now him and his mom and dad are able to go up in the mountains and go for walks and hikes, and it just makes their life easier going up and down the hills. And it has disc brakes, and So it's the specialty stuff is what we really love.
Yeah. So this is electric
I got
powered.
off track there. Yeah, it does have an electric wheel on it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I met you at the WCMX event a couple of weeks ago in Fontana, and that's where we met, and I encouraged you to come on, and that's one thing in our conversation I kind of picked up on is, you love the challenge, and if somebody has something that they've thought of that they need done, and especially if they're running up against people that are saying, well, either that can't be done or we can't do it, just come and see Tom. He loves the challenge. I hope I don't open a can of worms for you there.
No. And what's sad is a lot of them don't even say that they can't do it. They just blow the person off.
Yeah.
It's sad because a lot of these things I've done, I know these other companies could do it. It's just they're not the big money makers. The daily chair is everybody's bread and butter, and that's all they want to mess with.
Yeah. Well, they can mass produce them, and maybe change a few things to adapt to each person. Yeah. Well, I'm glad there are people out there like you. That's for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So, any future projects that are kind of in the works?
We have a 4-wheeled sports chair. My wife won't let me get in it. I'm about halfway finished with it. Years ago, somebody built an adaptive mountain bike for the easiest term, and it has 4 wheels. And there's an adaptive program up at Big Bear, and they have some of these. They call them gravity chairs, and they're an off-road chair with bicycle tires in the front and back. And we have one designed up, and we're about halfway through the process of building the first one. And it actually has 10 inches of wheel travel on all 4 corners, and we have it with an electric motor or without. It's just something for fun.
I was going to say, sounds like a recipe for fun.
And something that'll go really fast downhill.
And that's why the wife doesn't let you ride it, huh?
Right. She says, you better find somebody that's under 20 years old to drive this thing. It's not going to be something that's for everybody.
Yeah.
But there are the people. There are a few out there that would like to try something like that, and it's just been fun to try to come up with something new.
Let's turn now to Andrew Skinner, Triumph Foundation. You probably recognize that name if you're in the community in Southern California. He was a guest that overcame his injury and went on to start a foundation. Andrew Skinner, the founder of the Triumph Foundation, a survivor of a spinal cord injury, not only overcame his own challenges, but has dedicated his life to empowering others in the mobility challenged community. Here's Andrew discussing the importance of adaptive sports and outreach.
Thankfully, with my disability, I still had my education to fall back on. With a business degree, it's really applicable in a lot of different areas. And so one of my first goals after, getting hurt was to put a ring on Kirsten's finger and ask her to marry me before she smartened up. And so I was quick to get back to work as fast as I possibly could so I could start saving money. But essentially, my family is generations of builders and construction. Okay. And so I had worked throughout my really childhood and young adult life, swinging hammers and digging ditches and doing that kind of professional work. And after, I got injured, I was able to kind of fall back on my family business. So my brother had his own general contracting program, building custom houses and things like that. And obviously, like I said, I couldn't go work in the field anymore. So I like to say I got promoted to management. And so I started doing the bookkeeping and learned how to do estimating and project management. And that was what I did for a number of years, and still love that line of work, but essentially went back to work in construction, had to reinvent myself in a different capacity, then started dabbling in real estate a little bit, and just found a new path that was similar. And on the same note, I was able to use the skills that I learned from schooling and just somewhat professional life that really helped me find a new path with the career.
So then at some point, the idea of Triumph Foundation sprung?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the God honest truth is in 2008, for those who weren't old enough to remember, there was a big recession. And I found myself in a field, construction, real estate, that didn't have very much work opportunity. And so I had more time on my hands. And I had also gotten to a good place in my life where I felt I had achieved a certain degree of success. And like I kind of told you before, I knew how much it meant when people came to the group consistently that had kind of triumphed, had kind of overcome some of the initial difficulties and were successful in living a life that was productive and contributing to society and et cetera, et cetera. So in 2008, I made a choice that I was going to attend every single one of those weekly support groups, whether I wanted to or not. And so I started coming out to that. I started re-engaging with some of the activities and programs that were out there. And there was some wonderful programs that I got to know and join forces with. One of them, I'll just give a shout out, was called WINGS, WYNGS, When You Need Group Support. And they had instigated not only the Northridge group, but a couple other meetings that were polka dotted in Southern California. And, I loved them to death, but I also was coming home and saying, man, I wish they had programs for this. And why don't they have programs for that? And so after my family got tired of hearing me kind of gripe about it at the dinner table, they said, Andrew, why don't you do something about it? And so that was kind of how Triumph was started, was me being out of work professionally, having a little bit more time on my hands, and also me kind of following a commitment that I had made to myself, saying someday I'm going to pay it forward. Someday I want to be a guy like a Bobby, like Anthony, like Jeanette, like Michelle, like all these names that I could just, there's so many people. I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Next, we've got Ruthie Goldcorn, a legacy of advocacy. I met Ruthie over the years going to the Inland Empire Disability Collaborative. To say the least, outspoken. Ruthie shared her decades of experience as a disability advocate, emphasizing inclusion and economic opportunities for the disabled community. Of course, while we're talking to Ruthie, the subject of independence came up. We had a question we posed last week where just how long would it take you to put your socks, pants, and shoes on? Just those three things, pairs of things. And and I just asked around people I knew. I asked my daughter, I asked a friend of mine, and a few friends, and able-bodied and disabled, and especially the able-bodied. I was curious, and it ranged anywhere from 30 seconds to 4 minutes. That was my daughter. I don't know why it would take her 4 minutes to do that, but everybody was.
Because she had to find them first.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Yeah,
maybe to find her socks and shoes and whatever it was she was putting on.
Yes, and I timed myself. I knew it took me a while, and that's kind of why I posed the question, and I was even a little surprised. It was 7.5 minutes, for me just to put those three items on, and I wonder if it just sparks thought in somebody who's able-bodied. First of all, I think my first question: what takes you 7.5 minutes? I certainly don't want anybody to have to watch me, but it's try to put a pair of pants on sitting on your bed, and you'll kind of figure it out, and you can't move your legs, throw that in. So everything you do, you have to do with your hands to move your leg to a position before you can pull your pants off, and I say all that, and like I said last week, not, I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm looking to educate people to think about, that's one thing. That's one little inconvenience. I don't even put it any higher than that. It's not a challenge, it's not a mountain I'm having to climb every day. It's really just an inconvenience.
It actually is, though. But Doug,
it can be. Well, it's getting harder and harder the older I get. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and these are our mountains.
What's that, Eric?
it goes back to a matter of adapting on how you're going to do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we learn how to accommodate ourselves.
Yeah.
And people who are overachievers, Eric and Doug, I am, we do stuff that we probably shouldn't, but we've adapted and accommodated ourselves to be able to do those things. Let's put on pants.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm on the bed, and now I'm going to have to roll around on the bed because I'm going to have to roll over, and I'm going to have to pull them up, and my arms don't reach that far. I'm not exactly a dinosaur with little hands over here, but however, some people are.
Yep.
Because of their disability, because
right,
they have CP or they have had polio, whatever. And so we learn. And if there's a family member or there's a caregiver, there's only so much we want them to do. Independence is so critical, and you don't know how important your independence is, whether it's getting dressed or having breakfast or what, it doesn't matter. Going from one room in your apartment or your home or whatever, maybe in an institution, wherever you're going, that independence is critical. You don't know, okay, Eric, okay, and you manage, and you're here, and you do those wonderful things. Eric just put in the chat, I have the Rex arms.
I have the Rex arms.
Dude, that's freaking awesome. And you do what you do, and every day. But you don't know the level of your independence until you don't have it. I'm wearing a brace on my wrist because I was attacked by a broken baby changing table.
Uh-oh.
We hate those.
They're fierce.
They're dangerous if they're not maintained. They're not on the maintenance staff checklist.
Yeah.
And you have to know it's broken when you're washing the floor and it's in the down position and you shove it up and it crashes back down. You got to know it's broken.
Oh, good. We learned that today. Good.
I lost my independence, total independence for 2.5 weeks because I couldn't manipulate my chair. I couldn't do what I needed to do. And if Peter didn't want to go where I needed to go, whether it was to a Kiwanis meeting or it didn't matter.
That's your better half?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's all right.
If he didn't want to go, I didn't go.
Yeah.
And even temporarily losing that is devastating.
Yeah.
So whatever independence you have, whatever functionality and accommodations and adaptability you made for you, no one can tell you, well, you should do, no. Shoulda, woulda, coulda will kill you.
Yeah.
And
I'm at that point in my life, which I imagine you're right around the same age too.
I'm older than you.
Okay. Oh, that's nice. Usually, more often, I'm the oldest guy in the room anymore. But
you're not. You're not.
Good.
Not today.
But it's that's at this point, you definitely are, and like everybody, it's not just because you're disabled, but you get to this age and everybody starts to lose more of those functions that help you be independent. So yeah, and you kind of have to fight to hang on to them. So everybody goes through it.
Yeah, and you do, and you fight like hell.
Yeah.
And people view you differently when you're in a situation, whether it's temporary or there's a new baseline, a new permanence. They view you differently.
Got to know the guys from Live to Roll at the Adaptive Sports Expo in Ontario, California. I think we've had all three of them on now, but last year we had Tom Conaway on. Tom is an SCI survivor who faced life-challenging challenges at the tender age of 4 after a devastating automobile accident. Tom shares the unwavering support of his family and how during his teenage years, he discovered a burning desire to achieve independence. Here's more from Tom.
I was very fortunate in my adolescence to go through it as a kid. I think there's pros and cons to everything,
Yeah.
balance everything in life. Everyone say, like I've said that before, and people are like, what do you mean you're like lucky to be injured as a kid? Children have a unique, interesting perspective in the world, and also an amazing ability to learn and to adapt almost unconsciously.
Yeah.
And I was a benefit of that. I also had incredible support system, incredible love, and support from my mom and my dad and my brother and my sister. Shout out to them because they're awesome. They're the best. But I was a kid. I was going through a lot of growth and learning and change and transition. And
and you're probably talking about just the changes that any kid goes through.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm tough.
Every kid learns how to write,
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't really think about it though. Like you're just kind of doodling with a crayon and you pick up a pencil and you're drawing on the wall. And the next thing you know, you're learning how to do it. And that was very much my experience. Like I was playing with crayons and they were giving me like assistive devices and stuff to hold the utensils and things like that. But I was also like a kid, just let me just pick it up and play around with it. And that it helped me adapt, I think, a little bit easier than versus like an adult. I've seen a lot of adults go through this relearning process. And I always think it's like hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Like the adage is true, I think, to in a certain respect. Not that you can't, but the process I think can be a little bit harder. I've learned
because you're relearning, not necessarily learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I learned to feed myself once as a quadriplegic versus having to relearn it again as a quad after having done it one way my whole adult life. And I think that has given me. I always call myself like I'm a pro quad, because not just because I've been living and doing it for a long time, which has given me the pro status, but I adapted early on, and a lot of the skills that I've learned and used to be independent, I've been honing for the last 20 plus years.
I when I used to get an adaptive room in a hotel, this is before I discovered roll-in showers, and they would have these bars around the bathtub. Yeah. And God, it used to drive me nuts because they got in my way. My whole life I'd gotten in and out of the tub my own way without any assistive devices. So when all these assistive devices, I'm having a hard time getting in here because these assistive devices, are getting in my way. So it's just, you kind of grow up learning ways to, that you need personally. Again, that back to that fingerprint, there are things that just work for you that may not work for somebody else.
Yeah.
You want to hear something funny too? I'm getting a new wheelchair, and so there's a process now, I guess, which is new since the last time I got a wheelchair. They call it a wheelchair clinic, but what I've kind of learned is it's like a fraud prevention measure where they have a meeting that you have to go through about 20, 30 minutes of questions and all that. And the gal asked me how I transfer, and I'm like, I just put the wheelchair next to the bed and move. Oh, you pivot, and I'm like, I'm 68 years old, been disabled my entire life, and I learned a new. It cracks me up. I learned a new term. What I've been doing all my life is a pivot. Okay, now I know. I felt like an idiot.
I've learned some things like that too, and I'm always grateful for one because I can, use proper language to relay this information to other people. Because I've described it like that too, where it's like, well, how do you do your transfer? Well, I kind of just shimmy. I shimmy my butt. Like I just scoot. I scoot a little bit at a time. I park next to the bed and I just start to scoot. But like the pivot, does make a lot more sense in the explanation and stuff like that. So that's another thing too. Is my whole life, like I always introduce it now because I think it's important. I'm a C6B quadriplegic, but most of my life I was just like, I'm a C5-6. Like, whether incomplete or not, like that's just what they told me early on. I had an injury in my C5-6 vertebra, and that was it. Now I'd like to be specific just because in the way of educating other people and
Yeah.
stuff, especially now more with Live to Roll too, just like I was saying.
Yeah, and that's the other element, to live to roll. And here is, doing our best to kind of educate, especially the non, the ABs, the able bodies, so they understand. I had somebody say the other day to me, just, when I'm out in my life, I don't see very many people that are like in a wheelchair and that kind of thing. And I think we were at one of the events, and they're everywhere. So it's such a stark contrast, It's like, yeah, we're out there.
We are out there. We're not out there enough. I kind of feel the same way. Like every time I do see someone in a wheelchair, I'm like, hey man,
Yeah.
what's up?
Yeah.
Like I always like, hey, I got this camaraderie,
Yeah, instant.
I do live in Southern California, beautiful LA, and I'd say I probably see more than other more rural places or like less metropolitan places, because these are kind of hubs for individuals with disabilities, like they really are, in the way of access to good healthcare and also just accessibility in mass. Like larger metropolitan cities are, I would say, like the best in comparison to like smaller rural areas. Just having grown up in a small town myself, like the accessibility was not top priority until we got a city councilman who was a paraplegic, and they were able to incentivize and bring about some more significant change. The way, just like what you mentioned, like getting wheelchairs and stuff, everything's changed so much in the last 15 or 20 years. Some of it good. I do appreciate the regulatory agency and the checks and balances of, like the process of ensuring your disability and getting you the right equipment and making sure it's going to the right people and stuff. It's also super terrible and awful and messed up in many ways too, which is the kind of, I don't know, I could go on and on.
Rebecca Valenzuela. What can I say about Rebecca? Overcoming adversity. She was our first guest that came into the studio, so we had her here live, which was exciting. And what a story she had to tell. Just a vibrant, compelling young lady. Rebecca's story of becoming paralyzed at 22 was a raw, emotional reminder of human resilience. Her journey from tragedy to triumph inspired us all, may I dare to say. What are your hopes and dreams from this, kind of from this perspective going forward? What are the things, what's on, like, say, a bucket list, I guess they call it?
My bucket list is full of a lot. I would like to relearn how to play musical instruments. I really, really, really am hoping that I work hard for this for 2020. What is it? 2028 Paralympics.
Oh, okay.
I really want to go to that for rowing, archery, and fencing. So I'm gonna have to work hard.
Do you have a fencing coach?
No, but there's one in Temecula, a disabled one, and they want me to start practicing over there. And I'm gonna move to Temecula next month. Okay. So hopefully it all works out. I just need to start getting the ball on the grind, and I want to start going back to school. I want to get my master's degree, and I want to be I want to teach military personnel aviation, electronics technician. It's something I've always wanted to do. I love working with my hands, and I love teaching people, and I just have so much respect for our people in our military, and they honor us. They do a lot for us, and I want to do something for them. And I think being disabled and showing them that no matter what happens, because things happen in the military, you become disabled, there's still a world out there for you that you can continue to progress in. Because I've met a lot of people who are disabled that were in the military, and their first thought was, I didn't want to be here anymore, and I'm still here, and I'm still doing it. And then they just need that extra motivation. Like, they just need that extra person, or that like random person like me, this little girl that comes out of nowhere that's just like, get your butt up there, go do this. Like, I like to motivate people, and age is just a number. You never stop learning. You never stop growing. Like, you could either, when you're older, you could become bitter or happy. Mm-hmm. Same thing when you're young. So I've just learned, like, pick and choose correct friends, 100%.
Yeah.
and honor everybody around you that supports you, that does give you all the support that you need. Even if you don't see the support, you don't physically see it, but they are giving you the support. Respect those people because those people are by your side. Because I wouldn't be where I'm at if I never met Triumph, if I never met Live to Roll, if I never met you, if I never met like my football team. My football team motivated me to like want to continue. And not that I didn't, but I have days where I don't even want to get out of bed. I feel so angry at the world, and it's not even the world's fault. Yeah. And I tell myself, why are you mad? Like, what is your point? You waste more energy. You hurt yourself more being mad. And I don't want to teach people how to be mad. I want to teach them how to be happy. I want to teach them how to love, how to give each other peace, how to support each other, how to be there, how to actually be there for someone when they're asking for the help or they're not verbally saying it, but you're seeing signs.
Yeah.
Because we all of us in wheelchairs walk on a fine line between wanting to be here or not wanting to be here. And it's sad because a lot of the people that I meet that have told me like, hey, like I'm going through this and I'm going through that. And like, it's hard. I never went through that. I don't understand that. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to be open and I'm trying to understand because I want to understand that person, because I want to be there. Not to be weird, not to be intermingling in your life, because you need to be here on this planet because you deserve to be here. Yeah. Because just like I'm here, you're going to be here. And I was telling them, if you're going out, I'm going out with you. How does that make you feel? And they're like, no.
This one kind of surprised me. We went to the Angel Cities Sports Festival and we met a pair of fencers there and had them on the show a few weeks later. And I didn't really think that maybe talking about it, seeing it is exciting, but talking about parafencing on our program, I didn't know if this was going to be a big episode. It actually turned out to be, if not our biggest, it's right up there in the top 2 or 3. So check this out. Our dive into parafencing with experts in the field showed us a sport that exemplifies skill, strategy, and inclusivity. So for purposes of this conversation, I'd like to maybe focus a little bit more on parafencing. Maybe we can start with like the similarities. Is there, when you coach, like where do you start that process of introducing somebody to parafencing?
They really do go together quite well. The only difference is that your area of combat is either stationary or like your fencing piece or your strip is really close together, or you have 14 meters to play. And in parafencing, even though you are seated and locked down in this frame, you can still move around quite a bit and reach your opponent. You can move the frame so much that the whole thing can jump up in the air and shake and move and
that doesn't disqualify you. It's okay if you get that animated.
Yes, yeah. And the only thing is that you have to remain with one butt cheek on the seat at all times, because otherwise there is the butt judges, the assessors, will sit there and watch to see if they see light between your seat and your butt.
Yeah. So I think we talked a little bit too.
An actual judge for that? Wow.
Correct.
The butt judge.
2 of them. Each fencer has a butt judge.
Is there a French name for that?
We just call them the assessors.
The assessors. I like it.
Are they wearing a different uniform if we're watching on TV or seeing at a match? Are they? No, they're not wearing a different uniform or different. I know in football there's different uniforms for the umpires and referees and judges.
No, they will wear the same. They're just other referees who just they're assigned as the butt judges basically. So they'll sit on either side of the opponents and they will watch. And then during the halfway point, they'll switch. They'll change who they're watching.
Whose butt they're watching?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Good.
And that's huge, because I could see that a lot of movement and a lot of strategy, that if you can get that extra half inch
Yeah, absolutely.
Come off the chair and score a point, you might get desperate sometimes or something.
You know, and
exactly.
From competitor to competitor, there may be some competitors that may not have feeling in that area. And it may be difficult for them to know when they're leaving the seat, right?
I would say more it's that if you, in the United States, the A and B category, which is dictated by how much core control you have, an A has a lot more core control, and a B would be a lot of paraplegics, etc. So if in the United States, you're fencing A and B fencers all together. So an A fencer has an advantage if they could lift up their butt as opposed to a B fencer. So it's really about being fair and equitable to everyone. Yeah. In overseas and international competition, A's and B's fence separately.
Well, you know, that brings up a point, and either one of you can address this. How do you qualify? I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but there's been a lot of talk about who's qualified to be in what competition, you know, in the Olympics that just finished. What's to stop an able-bodied person coming in and competing in parafencing, or are there rules about that?
There are rules, and there is people. You have to have an assessment done by, generally, I've got to be in the room with the two doctors who get to make those assessments, and they'll run through a battery of tests to make sure that your injury is A, B, or C, or if you're injured enough. And if you're not injured enough, then you do not get to compete.
And then through that assessment, it's determined whether you're going to compete in the A or the B as well?
Or C, yes.
Oh, and C, there's three?
There, correct. And they can also they can adjust their scale. Usually, like at the World Cup in DC, they had their first assessment in the room, and then after that, they would kind of follow you for the next day or two and adjust if they need to. Where some people were like, well, we're going to put you at a low A, and then by the second day, they're like, no, you're a B. And then, okay, so then that'll just shuffle you around a little bit. And some people's injuries get worse and some people's get better. So that can also change in the future as well.
Yeah. And finally, let's close out with Abilities Expo, expanding horizons for years now. Next, it's an interview with Lou Schomer. He's the chairman of Abilities Expo. With several dates across the country, Abilities Expo is a beacon of empowerment, providing a platform for individuals with disabilities to access sports, resources, and support networks. Lou, emphasizing the importance of adaptive sports now. So do you have some new things this year that you think you predict might be a big seller?
We're always getting different things, and we get enhancements to original equipment. You know, a few years ago there was a thing called Smart Drive, and Smart Drive was a little motor that you put under a manual chair, and all of a sudden you had a power chair. And they were in business for about 5 years, and of course then Permobil bought them up.
Yeah.
Well, originally the Smart Drive cost about $2,500. Now Permobil's got it, and it costs about $5,200 or $6,000, but it's much more sophisticated now. So the joystick works better, the batteries work better. So the enhancements on what originally was a good idea are much better today. So you see lots of enhancements on different types of equipment. And we work with an organization called NCART for their advocacy organization for complex rehab. And last year, they've been trying for 5 years to get height elevation on chairs approved by Medicare. And it took 5 years, and they finally got that done because people with complex rehab, you know, they would like the ability to elevate their chair. And obviously, through using economics, by going back to Medicare, going back to the politicians who make these decisions, we said somebody who can do that doesn't necessarily need a carer as much as they would before because they're able to go up and down.
Yeah.
To us, it's practical. Why didn't they do it before?
Politicians. Politicians. You know, I went a few years ago and I saw, I can't remember, one of the big gamers, Xbox or one of them, and I was interested to see them there. And so I was talking with a representative, and they said we have a full on, push on trying to add accessibility to all of our games. So, they were bringing it there to show some new innovations that they had. And I know Eric's a gamer. He plays a lot of Wii.
Oh yes, Nintendo Wii is really good exercise and good bonding time with me and my father-in-law. We like bowling, we like golf, we like boxing. What's it? Forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. It starts with a B. About. It's the game where you with a bunch of the balls and you have to like
bocce ball.
Yeah, bocce ball. Thank you, Doug.
Well, it's interesting. We had Sony Xbox at one of our shows, and then we had Microsoft at one of our shows, and we've never seen them since. And gaming is huge in the disability community, absolutely huge.
Yeah.
And the reason is we haven't found the right executive who's got either a family member or a friend who has a disability.
They don't have that connection, right? Yeah.
And trust me, we try all the time. There's no question they should be there, because when Sony was there, I mean, they were crammed. You couldn't get in the place. They had 4 different stations and everybody wanted to play.
Yeah. Heck yeah. One of these days, don't give up. I'm sure you'll connect with that right person, right?
We don't give up. No.
So all you gamers out there might start a letter writing campaign to all the gaming companies and make sure they come back to Abilities Expo. Well, there you go. We wrap up our look back at 2024. That's not all the shows, obviously. We've got a lot more. But just gives you an idea of what we did in 2024. All of those episodes and so much more are on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. So check them out. We're on YouTube as well at Walk and Roll Live. And also we have a website, walkandrolllive.com. You can get all the episodes on all those places. All right. So thanks for listening. Thank our sponsors, our listeners, our guests. Each story, each voice has contributed to fulfilling our mission of building understanding, celebrating achievements, and fostering connections within the disability community. As we step into 2025, we're excited to bring you even more honest and open stories, valuable resources, and important conversations. Stay tuned, stay motivated, and stay connected. From all of us here at Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Happy New Year. May 2025 be filled with growth, joy, and new opportunities. And don't forget, life limitless.
Walk and roll life. Life's the best. Walk and roll life. Life limitless. Don't put me on a pedestal, I'm not here to inspire. I've got my flaws, my highs, my lows, my own heart's fire. I laugh, I cry, I break, I mend just like anyone. I'm not your symbol of courage, I'm just me done. I've got dreams that soar, fears that bind, moments of grace and times I'm blind. I'm not your hero or your saint, I'm real, I'm raw, no restraints. I'm more than your story, more than your view. I'm flawed and I'm brilliant, I'm kind and I'm cruel. I'll lift you up or let you down. I'm a fighter, a lover, a face in the crowd. I can be stubborn, bitter, or sweet. I win some battles, some I concede. I'm not defined by what you see. There's more to this life than sympathy. I fall, I rise, I break, I heal.